The grand hall of the Celestial Concordance shimmered with 1,000 lights, reflecting off crystal walls and floating orbs of energy. Diplomats, warriors, and leaders from countless species moved through the vast chamber, engaging in discussions that could shape the future of the galaxy. Among them was Lieutenant Adrian Voss, representing humanity, a young but rapidly rising power in the cosmos. Adrian adjusted his formal uniform, feeling slightly out of place among the elegant and otherworldly beings surrounding him. While most species here view humanity with curiosity or mild suspicion, he had grown used to the sideways glances and hushed conversations. Humans had a reputation: unpredictable, intense, and strangely resilient. Some races admired them, others feared them, but no one ignored them. As he moved through the crowd, he felt a shift in the air, an almost electric sensation washing over him. He turned and locked eyes with someone who instantly commanded his attention. She was breathtaking. Princess Zyra of the Alvathuri stood tall, her silver-blue skin glowing softly under the gala lights. Her long, iridescent hair floated as if caught in an invisible breeze, and her golden eyes studied him with sharp curiosity. The Alvathuri were known for their psychic abilities, their elegance, and their strict cultural traditions. They rarely interacted with outsiders, preferring to maintain their superiority through diplomacy rather than war. Yet here she was, walking directly toward him. Adrian straightened as Skyra stopped just a step away. Other diplomats turned to watch, sensing that something unusual was about to happen. The Alvathuri princess rarely approached anyone so directly. "You are human," she said, her voice smooth yet powerful. Adrian smirked. "Last time I checked." Her head tilted slightly. "I have studied your kind. Your history is chaotic. Your biology is strange. Your ways are unpredictable." Adrian chuckled. "I'll take that as a compliment." Zara stepped closer, her golden eyes locked onto his. "There is something I must understand." Adrian raised an eyebrow. "I'll do my best." She paused, then spoke with complete seriousness. "I wish to experience human mating." The entire hall fell into stunned silence. Conversation stopped. Eyes turned. Even the floating energy orbs seemed to dim. Adrian blinked. His brain struggled to process what he had just heard. "I'm sorry, you what?" Zyra's expression remained calm, as if she had simply asked him to pass the salt. "Your reproductive methods are vastly different from ours. Alvathuri bonding is a merging of energy, a psychic joining of minds. But humans, I have read that you rely on physical interaction, a complex ritual of emotional and biological exchange." Adrian coughed, feeling every eye in the room on him. "That's one way to put it." She took another step forward, her curiosity now burning. "I must know. Will you show me?" Adrian's heart pounded. He had faced alien warlords, deadly space battles, and near-impossible missions. But nothing had prepared him for this. Adrian felt the weight of the entire gala pressing down on him. Dozens of alien diplomats, warriors, and nobles were staring, waiting for his response. Some looked amused, others horrified. The Alvathuri delegation, standing behind Princess Zyra, had gone completely still. He forced a laugh, rubbing the back of his neck. I think there's been a misunderstanding." Zyra's golden eyes didn't waver. "Misunderstanding." Adrian cleared his throat. "Look, I appreciate the interest, but human mating isn't something we just demonstrate in front of an audience." A few nearby aliens whispered among themselves. Some seemed confused. Others nodded, as if finally understanding some great mystery about humans. Zyra, however, looked more intrigued than before. "Fascinating," she murmured. "Human bonding requires privacy, a secret ritual." Adrian opened his mouth to correct her but hesitated. If he explained too much, this situation could get even worse. Before he could figure out a way to escape, one of the Alvathuri counselors stepped forward, his voice sharp. "Princess Zyra, this is highly inappropriate." Zara turned her head slightly, her posture remaining regal. Why? It is a simple request. Humans and Alvathuri must understand each other better if we are to be allies. The counselor's face darkened. But another alien, a reptilian delegate from the Zrak Empire, let out a rasping chuckle. I say let the human prove his worth. If their kind is as impressive as the rumors suggest, then why not accept the challenge? Adrian frowned. Challenge. Zara nodded as if this was completely logical. Yes, if humans are as formidable as we have heard, then this should not be difficult. Adrian groaned inwardly. Great. Now it's a challenge. Before he could protest, the Alvathuri counselor turned to him, his expression severe. Human, do you understand what this means? Adrian sighed. Not really. The counselor exhaled sharply. By not immediately refusing the princess's request, you have unknowingly accepted a sacred trial. Adrian blinked. A trial. Zara nodded. Yes. In our culture, requesting to experience a bond with another species is a serious matter. It is considered a test of compatibility, endurance, and strength. Adrian's stomach dropped. Endurance. Zara's eyes glowed slightly. Yes, if you are not capable, the trial will prove it. The crowd murmured louder. Some aliens looked entertained. Others seemed deeply concerned. The Alvathuri warriors exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. Adrian took a deep breath. And what exactly does this trial involve? Zara's lips curved slightly. Training. Physical, mental, and emotional endurance. A test to see if human bonding is as powerful as the legends say. Adrian's head spun. He had gone from representing humanity at a peaceful gala to somehow being volunteered for an intergalactic relationship fitness test. And judging by the determined look in Zara's eyes, there was no way out of it. You said. The grand chamber was filled with Alvathuri of all ranks, warriors in shining silver armor, scholars in flowing robes, and noble elders watching from elevated seats. Glowing banners of blue and gold shimmered in the air, displaying the ancient symbols of unity and honor. And at the center of it all stood Adrian and Zara. Adrian had been through a lot in his life. Combat missions, survival tests, even a near-death experience in the bond space. But standing here, in front of thousands of alien eyes, was a whole new level of pressure. Zara, ever composed, stood beside him in ceremonial Alvathuri robes. Nervous human? She asked softly. Adrian smirked. A little. I mean, no one gave me a how to bond with an alien princess handbook. Zara chuckled lightly. Perhaps you will write one after this. The elder counselor stepped forward, raising his hands for silence. Today we witness history. His deep voice echoed through the chamber. For centuries, our people believed that true bonds required surrender, that one must submit to the connection, to the will of another. But today, we embrace a new truth. Murmurs spread through the crowd, but no one interrupted. The elder gestured toward Adrian. This human, Adrian Voss, has done what no other has. He has not broken. He has not submitted. Instead, he has balanced the bond. He has shown us that true unity does not require loss, but rather strength shared equally. Zara turned to Adrian and extended her hand, palm up. Adrian looked at it. He knew what this meant. This was more than just a ceremony. This was a declaration, a promise between two beings from different worlds. He placed his hand in hers. A soft golden glow surrounded them, pulsing gently. The Alvathuri bond space began to form, but this time, it was not a battle of wills. It was calm, balanced, equal. Zara's voice whispered in his mind, "Are you ready?" Adrian smirked. "I was born ready." The energy surged, filling the chamber with radiant light. Gasps echoed around them as the glow expanded, touching every Alvathuri present. For the first time, they felt what Adrian and Zara had discovered, a bond where no one was weaker, no one was stronger. a bond of true partnership. When the light faded, silence filled the room. Then, one by one, the Alvathari warriors slammed their fists over their chests in salute. The scholars bowed their heads in respect. The elders nodded in approval. The elder counselor smiled. The first bond of its kind has been formed. Humanity and Alvathari will move forward, together. As the cheers erupted, Adrian looked at Zyra. "What now?" he asked. Zyra's golden eyes glowed warmly. "Now, we see what the future holds." Adrian grinned. He had come here as a stranger. But now he was part of something greater. And this was only the beginning. Adrian had no idea what he had just signed up for. The moment he agreed to stay, the Alvathari Council wasted no time. Within hours, plans were made, discussions began, and Adrian was introduced to new customs he barely understood. Warriors, scholars, and even common citizens wanted to meet the human who balanced the bond. It was overwhelming, but through it all, Zyra remained by his side. She led him through the towering crystal halls of the Alvathari capital, explaining their ways in more detail. Their bond system wasn't just about romance, it was about connection, trust, and mutual growth. Bondmates shared thoughts, instincts, and sometimes even abilities. "Most of our people never questioned the way our bond worked," Zyra said as they walked through a glowing garden filled with floating plants. "But now, they see another path. A path where two beings do not have to surrender, but instead stand together." Adrian smirked. "So, I basically broke an ancient tradition just by being too stubborn to give up." Zyra chuckled softly. "In a way, yes." Adrian sighed, looking up at the twin moons hanging in the sky. "So what happens now?" Zyra hesitated for a moment before speaking. "The council will prepare a ceremony, a public declaration of this new bond between Alvathari and humanity. You will stand beside me, as a partner." Adrian raised an eyebrow. "Partner? You mean, like, officially?" Zyra nodded. "It is the only way to prove to my people that this connection is real, that it is equal." Adrian rubbed his chin. "Sounds like a big deal." "It is," Zyra admitted. Then, after a pause, she added, "Are you uncomfortable with this?" Adrian thought for a moment. Was he? Sure, this was a lot to process. He had come here as just another human envoy, and now he was about to become part of something historic. It was crazy. But at the same time, it felt right. He glanced at Zyra, seeing something in her expression. Uncertainty. She had always been calm, controlled. But now, she was waiting for his answer. Adrian smirked. "I've never been one to back down from a challenge." Zyra's golden eyes softened. "Then tomorrow, we stand together." As they walked back toward the palace, Adrian couldn't help but laugh to himself. Just a few days ago, he had been an outsider in a strange alien culture. Now he was about to become a symbol of something greater. And for the first time in his life, he had no idea what would happen next. Silence filled the chamber. Every Alvathari present stared at Adrian, their glowing eyes filled with disbelief. No one spoke. No one moved. The air itself felt heavier, charged with the weight of what had just happened. Adrian, still catching his breath, glanced at Zyra. She looked different. Not physically, but something in her expression had changed. Gone was the detached, regal demeanor. Instead, there was something softer, curiosity, maybe even admiration. The elder counselor finally stepped forward, his deep blue robes shimmering under the chamber's light. "Impossible," he murmured. "No species has ever achieved equilibrium in the bond space." Adrian wiped his forehead. "Well, humans like to break records." Some of the warriors exchanged glances, while others whispered amongst themselves. Zyra, however, remained focused on Adrian. "You did not surrender," she said, her voice quiet yet strong. "You did not break. You did not submit." Adrian crossed his arms. Yeah, I'm not really the bow down and obey type. Sarah tilted her head. That is what makes this different. She turned to the gathered Alvathari. Our people have always believed that bonding requires one to open themselves fully, to become one with their partner's essence. Until now, every species that attempted it either broke under the pressure or yielded completely. The elder counselor nodded. That has always been the nature of our bond. But this is new. He turned to Adrian. Your mind fought back, not to reject the bond, but to maintain your identity within it. A perfect balance. Unheard of. Adrian shifted uncomfortably. He hadn't expected to change history today. He had just been trying to survive. So, what does this mean? Zara stepped forward, her golden eyes locked onto his. It means that humans are not just compatible with Alvathari. They are equal partners. A murmur ran through the crowd. This was not a small revelation. This changed everything. The elder counselor stroked his chin. This discovery could reshape our entire understanding of interspecies relations. Perhaps the way we have bonded in the past has been incomplete. Adrian let out a nervous chuckle. Great. So, does this mean I passed the trial? Zyra's lips curved into a rare smile. You did more than pass, Adrian Voss. You have redefined what is possible. The warriors, once skeptical, now looked at Adrian with something different in their eyes. Respect. The counselors whispered among themselves, likely discussing what this would mean for future diplomacy. Then, Zyra did something unexpected. She extended her hand, not as a test, not as a formality, but as an offer. Adrian looked at it, then at her face. There was no demand, no pressure, just a simple choice. After a moment, he reached out and shook her hand. The chamber erupted into applause. For the first time in history, humanity and the Alvathari had formed a true bond, one built on equality. Adrian followed Zyra into a circular chamber filled with floating crystal orbs. Strange energy pulsed in the air, making the hairs on his arms stand up. Unlike the first trial, this place felt alive, as if it were waiting for something. Zyra turned to face him, her golden eyes glowing faintly. Now we test your mental strength. Adrian crossed his arms. Let me guess, some kind of mind-reading challenge. Zyra tilted her head. It is more than that. Alvathari bonding is not only physical, it is a merging of thoughts, emotions, and willpower. If your mind is weak, it will shatter under the connection. Adrian frowned. Shatter, as in go insane. Zyra nodded. Adrian let out a slow breath. Okay, no pressure. She gestured to the floating orbs. These are memory crystals. They will pull thoughts from your mind and shape them into illusions. If you cannot control them, they will consume you. Adrian stepped forward cautiously. And how do I win? Zyra's lips curled slightly. Simple. Stay in control. The moment he touched the first crystal, a surge of energy rushed through his body. The chamber around him disappeared, replaced by a familiar sight. His childhood home on Earth. Adrian blinked. He was standing in his old backyard, the scent of fresh grass filling the air. He heard laughter and turned to see his younger self playing with his little sister. His mother stood on the porch, waving at him. A deep warmth filled his chest. This was real. It felt real. But it wasn't. A whisper echoed in his mind. Stay in control. Adrian clenched his fists. This isn't real. The scene wavered. The sky darkened. His mother's smile twisted into something unnatural. Her eyes turned black, her face stretching in impossible ways. His younger self and sister vanished. The illusion was fighting back. Adrian felt pressure on his skull, like invisible hands trying to pull him into the vision. His heartbeat pounded in his ears. He had to break free. Focusing all his willpower, he forced the image to crack. The sky shattered like glass, and the vision collapsed. Adrian gasped as he was thrown back into reality, stumbling away from the crystal. His forehead was damp with sweat. Zaira watched him closely. Impressive. Most beings struggle for hours before breaking free. Adrian took a deep breath. Yeah, well, humans have a lot of practice fighting their own demons. Zaira studied him with something new in her eyes. Respect. Perhaps you truly are different. Adrian wiped his forehead. So, what's next? Zaira's golden eyes glowed brighter. The final test. The bonding simulation. If you survive, you will prove that humans are compatible with Alvatheri. Adrian exhaled sharply. What the hell had he gotten himself into? Adrian sat in a large chamber, surrounded by glowing symbols and floating energy orbs. The Alvatheri Palace guards stood at attention, their silver armor gleaming under the soft blue light. Across from him sat Princess Xyra, watching him with calm intensity. This is insane, Adrian muttered under his breath. Just a few hours ago, he had been enjoying a peaceful diplomatic gala. Now, he was caught in an interstellar misunderstanding that could shake human-Alvatheri relations. Somehow, he had unknowingly accepted a sacred trial, one that tested bonding compatibility between humans and Alvatheri. Xyra tilted her head. You seem troubled. Adrian sighed. Yeah, because I don't know what I signed up for. Xyra studied him for a moment before speaking. It is simple. The trial will determine if humans are capable of forming a strong, lasting bond with Alvatheri. Our people do not take such matters lightly. If we are to trust humanity as allies, we must understand your ways. Adrian rubbed his temples. And this trial, what does it actually involve? Before Xyra could answer, an elderly Alvatheri counselor stepped forward. His deep blue robes shimmered as he raised a hand, signaling for silence. The trial of union consists of 3 phases: physical endurance, mental synchronization, and emotional connection. Adrian frowned. That sounds intense. The counselor ignored him and continued. Each phase will test whether a human is worthy of bonding with an Alvatheri. Adrian sighed. You do realize human bonding isn't about being worthy, right? It's about attraction, emotion, and personal choice. Xyra's golden eyes gleamed with curiosity. Then this trial will prove whether humans are truly as unique as they claim. Adrian groaned. There was no way to talk his way out of this. If he refused, it could be seen as an insult. If he failed, humanity might look weak in the eyes of the Alvatheri. Either way, he was stuck. The counselor gestured toward a massive door at the far end of the chamber. It slowly opened, revealing an enormous training arena filled with various obstacles. Adrian's stomach sank. The first phase begins now, the counselor declared. Xyra stood gracefully, extending a hand toward Adrian. Come, Lieutenant Voss, show me what human endurance truly means. Adrian hesitated before taking her hand. The moment he did, a strange warmth spread through him, like an electric current running beneath his skin. Xyra's psychic energy, he realized. She smiled slightly. Do not disappoint me. Adrian let out a breath and followed her into the arena. He had no idea what was coming next, but one thing was clear. This was going to be the strangest challenge of his life. Adrian stood in a new chamber, different from the last. The air was thick with strange energy, humming like a silent storm. The walls shimmered, shifting colors in slow waves. This was no ordinary room. It felt like stepping into a living mind. Princess Xyra faced him, her expression unreadable. This is the final trial, the bonding simulation. Adrian rolled his shoulders, still feeling the aftershocks of the last test. All right, what do I have to do? Xyra stepped closer, her golden eyes locked onto his. This will be a direct mental and emotional connection. No illusions, no barriers. Our minds will merge, and our energies will synchronize. If you can withstand it, you pass. Adrian frowned. And if I can't? Xyra's voice remained calm. Your mind could break. Your emotions could overwhelm you. Your body may reject the connection entirely. Adrian sighed. Fantastic. Well, no turning back now, right? Hexira reached out, placing her fingertips lightly against his temples. The moment she touched him, a shock ran through his body, like lightning, but without pain. Then, everything changed. Adrian found himself floating in a vast space filled with swirling lights. It was neither sky nor sea, but something in between. He could feel Xyra's presence, like a soft flame, warm and radiant. A voice echoed in his mind. You are inside the Alvatheri bond space. This is where true connection happens. Adrian turned to see Xyra, but she was different. Her form was less solid, glowing with energy. He looked down at himself. He was the same. This is weird. Xyra's voice sounded amused. This is normal for my kind. Suddenly, waves of emotions crashed into him. Curiosity, determination, doubt. He could feel Xyra's thoughts as if they were his own. But then something else pushed back, his own emotions. Xyra gasped. Your mind, it is not passive. It resists. Adrian clenched his jaw. His human instincts, his willpower, they refused to be absorbed. Instead of surrendering, he instinctively pushed back. The energy between them crackled, neither side dominating the other. A balance formed. Xyra's surprise turned into something else, something Adrian couldn't quite define. Respect. Admiration. You are different, she whispered. Every species that has attempted this before either broke or submitted. But you refuse to yield. Adrian smirked. Yeah, humans tend to be stubborn like that. The bond space trembled, shifting into a glowing equilibrium. Adrian felt something new, a sense of understanding, a shared connection. It wasn't forced, it wasn't controlled. It was equal. Then, with a final pulse of energy, the bond space shattered. Adrian gasped as he snapped back into reality. Xyra staggered slightly, her usually calm expression shaken. The counselors, the warriors, everyone was silent. Then, Xyra spoke, her voice soft, but filled with certainty. The trial is complete. Humanity has passed. Adrian stood at the center of the chamber, still trying to process everything. Just a few days ago, he had been a simple envoy on a diplomatic mission. Now he was at the heart of a historic moment, one that could change the future of human-Alvatheri relations forever. The elder counselor raised his hand, silencing the murmurs around the room. This trial has revealed something we never expected. Humanity does not merely adapt to our ways. They bring something new, something equal. Adrian glanced at Xyra. She had been watching him carefully since the trial ended. He wasn't sure what she was thinking, but there was something different in her gaze now. Something he couldn't quite define. The counselor continued. For centuries, the Alvatheri believed true bonding required one to submit, to surrender fully to the connection. But today, we have seen another way. A younger Alvatheri warrior stepped forward. Does this mean humans will be accepted as bondmates? The elder nodded. It means we must reconsider all that we assumed. If the bond is not about surrender, but about balance, then we have much to learn from humans. The warriors murmured again, this time with excitement. The idea of bonding with another species had always been a controversial subject, but now, it was not only possible, it was respected. Xyra stepped forward. If we are to move forward, we must understand this new connection. We must experience it fully. She turned to Adrian. I extend an invitation to continue this bond, not just as a test, but as a true partnership. Adrian blinked. Wait, are you asking me to stay? Xyra nodded. I am. The room fell silent. The weight of her words was clear. Adrian rubbed the back of his neck. Look, I didn't exactly plan on getting involved in space diplomacy bonding rituals when I got here. He hesitated, then smirked. But I gotta admit, This has been one hell of a ride. Syra's lips curved slightly. Then stay. Learn. Teach us. The elder counselor nodded. If you accept, you would be the first human to form an official Alvathuri bond. It would be historic. Adrian looked around the chamber. The warriors who once doubted him now looked at him with respect. The counselors saw him as a key to something greater. And Tyra, there was something in her expression, something unspoken. He let out a breath. All right, I'll stay. The room erupted into applause once again, but this time, it wasn't just about the trial, it was about the future. Zira extended her hand once more. This time, Adrian took it without hesitation. The bond had begun. Adrian stood in the massive training arena, feeling very out of place. The walls shimmered with strange symbols, and hovering platforms floated above the ground. In the center, Alvathuri warriors stood in perfect formation, their glowing eyes watching him like a test subject in a lab. Princess Zyra stood beside him, her silver-blue skin practically glowing with excitement. This is the first phase, physical endurance. We will test your strength, speed, and resilience. Adrian crossed his arms. Sounds like a workout. Zyra gave a small smile. It is more than that. If you are to bond with an Alvathuri, you must prove that your body can handle the energy exchange. Our kind merges mind and form during bonding. If your body is too weak, it will break. Adrian frowned. Break, as in die. Ira nodded. Completely serious. Adrian groaned. Fantastic. And here I thought first dates were stressful enough. The Alvathuri warriors spread out as the trial began. The first challenge was the gauntlet, a long corridor filled with moving obstacles, energy pulses, and shifting gravity. Thyra went first, moving with supernatural grace, her body twisting and flipping through the air like a dancer. She landed on the other side effortlessly, turning to face Adrian. Your turn, she said. Adrian took a deep breath. All right, let's do this. He charged forward. The first few obstacles weren't too bad, dodging energy pulses and leaping over spinning platforms. But then the gravity shifted, and suddenly he was running upward as if the ceiling had become the floor. Okay, that's just unfair, he shouted. Zara watched with clear amusement. Adrian barely managed to adjust, flipping onto a floating platform just before the gravity changed again. He landed hard but rolled back to his feet. The final stretch required him to jump across unstable floating pillars. He took a deep breath and sprinted forward, launching himself from one to the next. The last pillar began to sink just as he reached it. With no time to think, he pushed off with all his strength, soaring toward the finish. He hit the ground with a thud. Panting, he looked up to see Xyra staring down at him. Impressive, she said. Your body adapts quickly. Adrian groaned. Glad to hear it. The Alvathuri warriors murmured among themselves. They had expected him to fail, or at least struggle much more. Xyret extended her hand. Come. The next phase will test your mind. Adrian took her hand and stood up. His muscles ached, but a part of him was enjoying this. He had faced many challenges in his life, but nothing quite like this. As he followed Xyra toward the next trial, he smirked. If this is how humans prove themselves, you have no idea what's coming next. You said,